The rain came down in sheets, hammering the pavement outside the diner where I sat, staring at a cold cup of coffee. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "You still at Rosie's? Stay put. Ethan's coming to get you." My heart stuttered. Ethan, Caleb's older brother, the guy who'd been a quiet storm in my life since I was 16, was the last person I wanted to see tonight. I'm Julian Torres, 24, a graphic designer scraping by in Portland, Oregon. My life's been a mess of late-night deadlines and dodging my landlord's calls, but nothing compared to the chaos Ethan Reynolds stirred in me. At 27, he was a firefighter with broad shoulders, hazel eyes that saw too much, and a guarded smile that could unravel me in seconds. Caleb, my best friend since high school, had no idea how his brother's presence turned my world upside down. The diner door swung open, and there he was, Ethan, soaked from the rain, his navy jacket clinging to his frame. "Julian, let's go," he said, voice low but firm, like he was pulling me out of a burning building. I grabbed my bag, muttering about how I could have walked, but he just raised an eyebrow. "Not in this storm. You're staying over." My stomach twisted. Another night at the Reynolds house, where Ethan's quiet intensity made it impossible to think straight. We drove through the rain-slicked streets in his beat-up pickup, the radio humming softly with some indie song I didn't know. Portland's lights blurred outside, a kaleidoscope of neon and reflections. Ethan didn't say much, just stole glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking. I'd known him for years, since Caleb and I bonded over comic books and bad cafeteria pizza, but Ethan was always different, distant yet magnetic, like a book I couldn't read but couldn't put down. "You didn't have to do this," I said, breaking the silence. "I'm not a kid anymore." He smirked, eyes on the road. "Yeah, but you're still a mess in a storm." I rolled my eyes but couldn't argue. The truth was, I'd always been a little reckless. Staying out too late, forgetting umbrellas, chasing dreams that didn't pay the bills. Ethan, though, was the opposite. Steady, dependable, the guy who ran into danger for a living but somehow made it look effortless. When we pulled up to the Reynolds house, a cozy, two-story place nestled in a quiet suburb, I hesitated. Caleb was away for a work trip, which meant it'd just be me and Ethan. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from the cold. Inside, the house smelled like cedar and old books, familiar and warm. Ethan tossed me a towel and pointed to the guest room. "You know where everything is. Don't drip on the floor." I laughed, but it was nervous. "Yes, sir." He paused, looking at me for a beat too long, then turned away. "Get some sleep, Julian." But sleep was the last thing on my mind. I lay on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd spent with Ethan over the years. The summer I turned 18, when he'd caught me sneaking beers from the fridge and didn't rat me out, just sat with me on the porch and talked about stars. The time he patched up my knee after I fell skateboarding, his hands steady but gentle. And last year, when he'd found me at Caleb's birthday party, drunk and rambling about a breakup, and let me crash on their couch instead of sending me home. Each memory was a thread, pulling me toward him, but there was always a wall. Ethan was straight, or so I'd assumed. He'd dated women, hadn't he? I'd seen him with that paramedic, Sarah, a couple of years back. But then there were those moments, his lingering looks, the way his voice softened when he said my name, that made me question everything. The rain kept pounding outside, and I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was different, like something was about to break open. Morning came too fast. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Ethan moving around the kitchen. He was in a faded t-shirt, hair still messy from sleep, flipping pancakes like it was no big deal. "You're up," he said without turning. "Hungry." "Always," I replied, sliding onto a stool at the counter. The domesticity of it, Ethan cooking, the morning light streaming through the window, felt dangerously intimate. I watched him move, all quiet confidence, and wondered how someone could be so infuriatingly perfect and so unreachable. We ate in comfortable silence, but my mind was racing. I wanted to ask him why he kept doing this. Picking me up, letting me stay, acting like it was nothing when it felt like everything. But before I could find the words, he spoke. "Caleb's worried about you, you know?" he said, setting down his fork. "Says you're burning out." I shrugged, pushing a piece of pancake around my plate. "I'm fine, just figuring things out." Ethan leaned back, studying me. "You're not fine, Julian. You're running yourself into the ground." The edge in his voice caught me off guard. "What's it to you?" I snapped, defensive. His jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought he'd drop it. But then he leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. "It's a lot to me." My heart stopped. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. "Finish your breakfast," he said finally, standing up. "I've got a shift in an hour." And just like that, the moment was gone. But as I watched him walk away, I knew something had shifted. Ethan Reynolds wasn't just Caleb's older brother anymore. He was a question I needed to answer, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. The fire station was a maze of concrete and steel, smelling faintly of diesel and coffee. I'd shown up unannounced, a bold move even for me, but Ethan's words from that morning had been looping in my head all day. "It's a lot to me." What the hell did that mean? I needed to know, so I'd borrowed Caleb's bike and pedaled across town to confront him. When I found Ethan, he was polishing a fire truck, his sleeves rolled up, a smudge of grease on his cheek. The sight of him, focused, strong, completely unaware of me, made my resolve waver. But I wasn't backing down. "Julian," he straightened, surprise flickering in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to talk," I said, suddenly aware of how out of place I felt in my paint-splattered hoodie among the firefighters. He wiped his hands on a rag and nodded toward a quieter corner of the station. "All right, talk." I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out before I could overthink them. "What you said this morning about me matching to you, what was that about? Because you can't just say stuff like that and walk away, Ethan." He froze, his expression unreadable. For a second, I thought I'd misread everything, that I'd made a fool of myself. But then he stepped closer, his voice low. "You think I say things I don't mean?" My pulse raced. "I don't know what you mean half the time. You're always there, pulling me out of messes, but you never let me in. So what is it, Ethan? Why do you care?" He looked away, jaw tight, and I could see the battle in his eyes. "It's complicated," he said finally. "Uncomplicate." I shot back, frustration bubbling up. "I'm tired of guessing." Before he could answer, the station's alarm blared, red lights flashing. Ethan's posture shifted instantly, alert, professional. "I've gotta go," he said, already moving. "Stay here. We'll talk later." When Ethan finally emerged, he looked exhausted, his face smudged with soot. He stopped short when he saw me. "You're still here. You told me to stay," I said, standing. "So I stayed." Something softened in his expression. He gestured to the truck. "Come on. I'm done for the night." We drove back to his place in silence, the weight of our earlier words hanging between us. When we got inside, he didn't bother with the usual routine, no offering me a towel or pointing me to the guest room. Instead, he grabbed 2 beers from the fridge and handed me one. "All right," he said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. "You want to know why I care? Because I've been watching you for years, Julian. You're reckless and stubborn and so damn alive it hurts to look at you sometimes." And he stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw something raw, unguarded. Feel this much. My breath caught. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I wanted to reach for him, to close the distance, but fear held me back. What if I was wrong? What if this was just another moment that would slip away? Ethan, I started, but he shook his head. I'm not good at this, he said. I've spent my whole life keeping things in check. My job, my family, everything. But you make me want to let go. I didn't know what to say. All I could do was lean forward, my hand brushing his on the table. His fingers twitched, then curled around mine, warm and steady. It was the smallest gesture, but it felt like the world had shifted. We stayed like that, hands touching, eyes locked, until the front door slammed open. Caleb's voice echoed through the house. Yo, Ethan. You home? We pulled apart, the moment shattered. Caleb appeared in the doorway, oblivious, grinning. Julian? What are you doing here? Long story, I muttered, my heart still racing. Ethan stood, his face a mask again. He needed a place to crash. You know how he is. Caleb laughed, but I caught Ethan's glance. A promise that this wasn't over. The next few days were torture. Ethan and I danced around each other, our almost confession hanging like a storm cloud. Caleb, back from his trip, filled the house with his usual chaos: video games, takeout boxes, and endless stories about his job at a tech startup in Seattle. But every time Ethan and I were in the same room, the air crackled. A brush of shoulders in the hallway, a shared glance over dinner. It was maddening. I threw myself into work, sketching logos for a client in a coffee shop downtown. But my mind kept drifting to Ethan's hand on mine, his words echoing, "You make me want to let go." I'd spent years convincing myself he was off limits, that my feelings were a one-way street. Now I wasn't so sure. One evening, I got a text from Ethan. Meet me at the waterfront, 8 p.m. No explanation, just an address. My stomach flipped. Was this it? The moment we'd finally talk, or something else? The Portland waterfront was alive with joggers, street musicians, and couples strolling under the cherry blossoms. I found Ethan leaning against a railing, watching the Willamette River shimmer under the city lights. He was in a black jacket, hands in his pockets, looking like he carried the weight of the world. You came, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. You asked, I replied, echoing our conversation at the fire station. He laughed softly, then gestured to the path. Walk with me. We wandered along the river, the city's hum fading into the background. Ethan told me about his job, how the adrenaline of a call could make him feel alive, but the quiet moments after, when he'd saved someone or lost them, were what stayed with him. I talked about my art, how it was the only thing that made sense when the world felt too heavy. Why'd you ask me here? I said finally, stopping under a street lamp. He turned to face me, his eyes searching mine. Because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this. Whatever this is between us. My heart pounded. Ethan, I've felt it for years. But I thought you didn't. That you couldn't. I didn't know I could. He interrupted, voice raw. I've spent so long doing what's expected, being the good son, the tough firefighter. But you make me question all of it. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him. So what do we do? He reached out, his hand grazing my cheek. We figure it out. Together. Before I could respond, he leaned in, and his lips met mine. It was soft at first, tentative, then deeper, like he was pouring everything he'd held back into that kiss. The world fell away, the river, the city, the fear. It was just us, standing in the glow of a street lamp, rewriting everything I thought I knew. But reality has a way of crashing in. A group of drunk college kids stumbled by, shouting something crude. Ethan pulled back, his face tense. "We should go," he said, his voice tight. I nodded, but my chest ached. Was he ashamed? Scared? I wanted to ask, but the moment felt fragile, like it could shatter if I pushed too hard. Back at the house, Caleb was sprawled on the couch, oblivious as ever. Ethan and I didn't talk about the kiss, but his hand brushed mine as he passed me a glass of water. It was enough to keep me holding on. The next morning, I woke to a note on the kitchen counter. Had an early shift. We'll talk tonight. I smiled, but the unease lingered. Ethan was wrestling with something bigger than me, his family, his job, maybe his own identity. I wanted to be there for him, but I didn't know how. That night I waited, but Ethan didn't come home. Instead, I got a call from Caleb. His voice was shaky. "Julian, it's Ethan. There was a fire. He's in the hospital." My world tilted. I grabbed my jacket and ran. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and worry. I found Caleb in the waiting room, his face pale, eyes red. "He's stable," he said before I could ask. "Smoke inhalation, some burns, but he's gonna be okay." Relief hit me like a wave, but it didn't erase the fear. "Can I see him?" Caleb nodded. "Room 312. He's been asking for you." My heart skipped. I navigated the sterile hallways, each step heavier than the last. When I pushed open the door, Ethan was there, propped up in bed, an oxygen mask loose around his neck. His left arm was bandaged, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. "Julian," he rasped, voice rough from smoke. "You didn't have to come." "Shut up," I said, pulling a chair close. "You scared the hell out of me." He managed a weak smile. "Occupational hazard." I wanted to yell at him, to tell him to stop being so damn brave, but instead, I took his hand. His fingers tightened around mine, and for a moment we just sat there, the beeping monitors filling the silence. "I thought I lost you," I said finally, my voice breaking. "You didn't," he said. "I'm right here." But it wasn't just the fire I was afraid of losing him to. It was everything, the unspoken rules, the fear of what others might think, the weight of who he was supposed to be. I needed to know where we stood. "Ethan, what are we doing?" I asked. "The kiss. The way you look at me, I need to know if this is real." He looked down at our joined hands, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "It's real," he said. "But I'm scared, Julian. I've never let myself feel this way about a guy. About anyone." My chest tightened. "You don't have to have it all figured out. Just don't shut me out." He nodded, but his eyes were distant. "I need time to understand this, to be honest with Caleb, with my family." I wanted to push, to demand more, but I saw the weight he was carrying. "Okay," I said, "but I'm not going anywhere." He squeezed my hand. "Good." The next week was a blur. Ethan was discharged, and I stayed at the house to help while he recovered. Caleb, still shaken, didn't question why I was there so much. I cooked terrible meals. Ethan teased me mercilessly, and slowly, we found a rhythm. Stolen glances turned into stolen kisses when Caleb wasn't looking. Each one felt like a promise, but also a risk. One night, as we sat on the porch, Ethan broke the silence. I told Caleb about us. My stomach dropped. What did he say? He was confused, asked a lot of questions, but he's okay. Said he just wants me to be happy. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "And are you happy?" He looked at me, his smile soft but sure. "Yeah, for the first time in a long time. But happiness is fragile." The next day, I got a call from my landlord. My apartment was being sold, and I had 2 weeks to move out. Panic set in. My savings were non-existent, and Portland's rents were brutal. When I told Ethan, he didn't hesitate. "Move in with us." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "What?" "I'm serious," he said. "There's room. Caleb's cool with it. And I want you here." It was too much, too fast, but the look in his eyes made me say yes. Moving in was chaos. Boxes everywhere. My art supplies cluttering the living room. Caleb complaining about the mess but helping anyway. Ethan was still healing, so I took over chores, trying to prove I wasn't just a freeloader. But every night, when Caleb was asleep, Ethan and I would sit on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. Those moments, his arm around me, the quiet of the house, felt like home in a way I'd never known. But the world outside wasn't as kind. Ethan's fire station was tight-knit, and word got around. Some of his co-workers were supportive, but others not so much. I saw the strain in his eyes when he came home after a shift, the way he'd go quiet when I asked about his day. One night, he admitted someone had left a note in his locker. "Keep it in the closet." I was furious, ready to storm the station, but Ethan just shook his head. "It's not worth it, Julian. They'll come around. Or they won't. I don't care." But I could tell he did care, and it killed me to see him hurt. Then came the night that changed everything. We were at a bar with Caleb and some of his friends, celebrating a project I'd landed. Ethan was quieter than usual, nursing a beer, his eyes scanning the room. I thought he was just tired, but when we stepped outside for air, he pulled me close. "I love you," he said, his voice steady but vulnerable. "I've been scared to say it, but I do, and I'm done hiding it." I froze, my heart in my throat. "Ethan, I mean it," he said. "I don't know what this looks like. Us, the future, but I want it. With you." Tears stung my eyes. I kissed him, right there on the street, not caring who saw. "I love you too," I whispered. When we went back inside, Caleb caught my eye and grinned, like he'd known all along. Maybe he had. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. Ethan faced more whispers at work, and I struggled to find my place in a house that wasn't mine. But we faced it together. We went to pride events, held hands in public, built a life that was messy but ours. Ethan started therapy, working through years of repression, and I poured my heart into my art, creating pieces that told our story. One evening, as we stood on the rooftop of a friend's apartment, the city sprawling below us, Ethan wrapped his arms around me. "You changed me, Julian," he said. "Made me braver than I thought I could be." I leaned into him, the skyline glowing in the distance. "You did that yourself. I just gave you a reason. Love doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase prejudice or pay the bills. But it gives you something to fight for." And as I stood there with Ethan, I knew we'd keep fighting, together. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone in, even when the world tells you not to. And that's a story worth telling.